Welcome back, 3D students. In this video, we're going to import our studio setup into this scene, and we're going to take a nice image of this set of dice with depth of field. So let's get started. Let's start by going to File, Import, Merge. And we're going to find the studio setup that we created. Here's mine. And then we're going to select everything in the scene, except the torus knot. We don't need that. And then that brings in our studio backdrop. We can rotate around to see which direction everything is happening here. Now, I want my dice to roll away from the front of the backdrop here. I want them to roll this way. So what I'm going to do is reset my simulation, and I'm going to select all the dice and my little thing, and I've selected my backdrop as well. I'm going to hold down Alt to deselect that. I selected this light. I'm going to deselect that. And then I'm going to rotate my dice so that they face away from the view. And switch to the Move tool and move them maybe a little further towards the front. Then I'm going to run the simulation. We'll see what happens. And I think that's what I want. But I need to be able to run this simulation and have it stay simulated. So what I need to do is create some keyframes for these dice. Now we might need more than 100 frames here, so I'm going to go ahead and right click on the play button, and I'm going to give it 300 frames just in case. Click OK. So what we need to do is bake the animation and create keyframes for it. So once we've added some frames here, we need to bring up the MassFX tool set here, and I'm going to bring up my Scene Explorer. I don't know why mine's not docked. Here it is right here. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select all my dice this way. I think that's the easiest way to select them without having to select and deselect stuff. And I'm going to select my plane. And then we're going to go to this button right here. I'm going to find Bake. And let's click Bake. And that creates keyframes for all the objects I've selected here. Once it's done, we can close this, and now we can just play the animation at will. I'm going to select the plane and hide it, because I don't want it in the scene right now. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Zoom in a little bit on my dice. And now we're going to create a camera for this scene, and we're going to add depth of field to it. Now what depth of field means, as I explained before, is that objects inside the focal plane of the camera will be in focus and objects outside that will not. If I focus on this die, for example, and set the depth of field there, then these will be out of focus and so will that one. But I think I'm going to focus on, say, this one. But the first thing we need is a camera. So let's go to the Create tab, or the Create menu item, and select Cameras. Create Physical Camera from View. And that will create a camera based on this view, and it will also change our viewport to the physical camera. And then let's scroll down in the settings here, and we're going to find Aperture. And the aperture needs to be small. Let's make it like 1.5. And then let's find depth of field right there. And then let's turn on Arnold Render Active Shade and see what that looks like. Now when that is done rendering, you can clearly see that these dice in the front here are out of focus and these in the back are in focus. So let's expand our viewports so we can work on our camera. And here, where the camera target is, all the way out here, is where the depth of field is set to be. So let's come over to our Scene Explorer and select the target. And here's where the focus is. So let's move that target so that it rests on the dice, or the die that we want to be in focus. About right there. Notice when I'm moving the physical camera viewport, I'm actually moving the camera. Now if I need to move the camera more, I select that physical camera viewport, and these are the tools I can move it with. This is the dolly, or zoom. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And then let's expand that viewport and see if we have the depth of field that we want. Now that's pretty good, but let's select the camera. Let's select the camera so we can get it at settings. And you can see that looks pretty good, but as I said, let's change this setting. Let's make this setting something ridiculous like 0.5. And you can clearly see here that we have much more of an effect here. Now let's change it to something like 0.25. And now you can see that the dice in the foreground are out of focus. The dice in the far away in the background are way out of focus, but the dice that is our target is aligned with is clearly in focus. What this means is that we have a very, very narrow focal plane. In other words, imagine a box around the object here. The lower this number, the narrower the box gets. So anything in front is out of focus and anything in back is out of focus. I think 0.5 is a good number for me. And then you can also select your lights, your key light, your fill light, and your hair light, and change the colors. That's what I've done with mine. As you can see here and here, I left my key light white, or actually a little orange. And once you get everything set up, let's go ahead and go to Arnold Render View. Go ahead and render this. Once it's done rendering, you can also adjust the exposure a little bit if you wanted to here in this window. This will stay with your render when you save it. So once you're done, go ahead and save your image. I'm going to put mine on my desktop. And then you can turn this in to the assignment. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.